So let's go over to the note template editor, and we're actually going to look at this field, which is I've labeled as CC:other providers. The actual database name of the field is CC letters. That's important. So in the upper circled box, the CC letters field is the field name, the template field name of this particular piece of data. Notice that what I've put in the default, it's called default predefined area. I don't know if you can read that, but it's curly brackets, CC letters, curly bracket. What I've done here is just said to this field, always reference the information from the last time this field was used, anywhere in the chart in this particular instance. I've also clicked on the autofill values. So if you didn't put default text, you could still use your autofill button to populate this with the previous information. Okay? So a good example of where you can avoid more duplication of effort for something that's already been done. You don't need to do it again. Okay? And there's just an example of that. In fact, you could autofill that particular box. There's where the autofill is. I'll go over that a little more in detail in a little bit. So it gets even better because CC letters has been populated only once. Its content flows on into the future. It's one of these pieces of information that's this cloud of information following the patient wherever they go. But its content flows into notes, and then its content drives your workflow so your staff know who gets a CC on this patient's letter. So it's two tools magnifying each other, basically. Graphically, CC letters, again, is a separate field existing in an encounter, flows forward, and then flows out. So where might this be useful? This is where we get into a little bit of the design of how your workflow works. Where could we use something like this? Where would it be dangerous to use this? Where would it be illegal to use this? For instance, we've been warned by some of our advisors in billing that if you flow forward your physical exam and you don't change it, you could be in trouble. Now, I've never heard this from an actual inspector or somebody who's suing or looking at not paying me from a payer, only from advisors, and I'm not sure how much of it is true. If your physical exam is normal every single time, why not flow it forward? But I'm not advising you to do that. There are certain fields that have to be changed each time. So past medical history, though, you can keep that information flowing forward, and you can in fact build upon it. Who the other providers are, the allergies. You don't want to be having to enter the allergies each time. Prior diagnostic results, that's a really good area to flow forward, so that maybe in OB or in orthopedics, you want to know what the prior results were for an x-ray and what they are now. Instead of having to go into the chart index, click on diagnostic results, and then find the x-ray, you could keep that stuff flowing forward all the time. Template fields that, I alluded to this, that build upon themselves. Diagnostic results. Assessments can build on themselves. Okay, and then we have a special consideration that we had to create a separate progress note and workflow for, and that's interim events. Think about sticky notes that are on your paper charts, or sticky notes that are still in your office, even though you use the EMR. You get a sticky note, Mrs. Jones called, she is swelling from the medicine you gave her. That doesn't have to be a sticky note. That can be what we call an interim note that exists outside your major templates. It's actually just a field it's a template field, and it's its own note also. Now I get a message from my office staff typed that says, Mrs. Smith is swelling from the new medicine. Not only do I respond to that with the whole workflow that that the EMR allows, but that actually then inserts itself into my next HPI. And so I've got CC letters here that just flows forward, but HPI flows in and out of notes. And now my HPI is actually being built for me during interim events, whatever that event might be. And then you don't forget them either. Think about a sticky note falling off the chart. Mrs. Jones is having chest pain, call her right now, and it's off the chart, and then you see it yesterday, or you see it tomorrow. You don't want to lose things like that. Mark also mentioned that from a litigation standpoint, the EMR seems to be better, or that he feels that insurers are going to lower your premiums if you use an EMR. I hope that's true. I haven't seen that data. But if lawyers suddenly learn how to query EMRs, it could be good or it could be bad for you. Because if you clicked on viewing a result and you viewed it 5 times, the system knows you viewed it 5 times, but then if you didn't do anything, you could have a little bit of trouble. So it sounds really easy. And again, I'm going to refer back to Mark's talk, but it requires skills almost tantamount to a programmer. And this is true of all EMRs. To be able to configure these templates, if anybody's done it, it's very complex. I would say that PracticeOne is easier and more balanced than the other ones, but it's a hugely powerful tool. And when you think of where potential information is flowing and coming from, it should give you a little bit of pause. And so your design process in a template, your design process happens on paper and has to be worked through with multiple different people. Here's the next caveat. Unfortunately, providers like me and many doctors, we have trouble expressing our needs in a format that translates to what programmers and what template designers can provide you with. And to find a doctor that has an understanding of programming and clinical medicine is unusual. It's probably worthwhile, if you have one doctor that's interested, to upgrade their knowledge into what a functional requirement is, or what the processes of design include. So I'd recommend actually, get functional requirements, design, and construction from a single individual or 2 individuals. At least one of them has to be a high-level provider. It doesn't have to be a doctor. Nurses can do this if they have IT background. This should be a whole part of your planning process. Getting the requirements from doctors. Does everybody know what functional requirements are? Functional requirements, that's where you tell a programmer, I want the program to do this. When I press a button, I want to be able to prescribe a medicine. That's a functional requirement. It's up to the programmer then to design the program. Doctors tend to want to get a little more involved and say, well, I want to press the button, and then when the button comes up, I want it to do this and that and the other thing. That's more for the programmer to decide. Let's now talk, we're going to move a little bit more into what a note is from what a template was. So the goal is to complete as much of the note as possible automatically at the time it's created, or even before the visit. One of the things that we do in preparation, when we're confirming the visit, if the patient confirms the visit, the nurse creates the note. And about 70% of the note is actually done 2 days before the patient comes in. And then, of course, completing the note is broken down into the smaller tasks of completing the template fields. If we can get doctors and other people who are filling out these notes to understand this concept, it's going to go a lot easier when you implement your system. They tend to think that a note is a continuous flow of ideas, a soap note, and that the plan is its own little contained thing. But what you find when you analyze your workflow is that the note is in fact separate sections and separate little things that go different places. So here's an example of one of our templates. We're focused on patient note and the note tab. That review tab I'll talk about a little bit later. That's a different tab of our note. And much of this information may have already been filled in. Of course, the past medical history, that didn't change, so that's already there when I open this template. The HPI might also be there too. And then I'm going to, of course, put my cursor in there and type and add the HPI that is relevant to the patient coming in to visit me. So, again, reiteration that the note is going to be componentized into these modules. It's so good that you can now send a message based upon one of these.